Hi, Facebook. It's Thursday afternoon, and I'm actually sitting in the parking lot of Wamogo High School. I am back in the district today. Sometimes I can spend Thursdays in district, and I've been able to do that, hence my return to my car. And I have just figured out that I have been in every town of the district today except for Kent. And so my apologies to Kent. I promise I'll get back there soon. And so I figured there are a few things that I wanted to highlight in general in terms of what was happening in the legislature, but I thought today I'd just sort of take you through my day in the district, which touched on a lot of some of the themes that relate to legislation and just various things of concern throughout the district. So I started out my day at the Cornwall Country Market, having a conversation about composting toilets, and received a genuine vintage copy of the book Humanure, hot off the presses. Apparently you can still get it on Amazon. I should look it up. That's actually a conversation that I've had with some selectmen and a variety of people about looking at some broader ways to do septic systems, both for affordability and affordable housing, for example, and to help deal with constrained spaces in some towns and a whole variety of issues. So it's really interesting, and it's actually an issue that one of my daughters has been talking to me about too. So family life also will give me some credit in that department. So that was a really interesting conversation. I went from there to Sharon, where I visited the Silver Lake Conference Center and camp, which is Congregational Church affiliated camp and conference center that does a lot of retreats during the off season and during the winter and spring and summer, and then does a lot of camps in the summertime. And got to tour their facilities. My family have spent a lot of time at camps of various kinds. My kids have worked at camps. My first job at 14 was at a camp, cleaning a barn and doing various things. So it was nice to be back there and to see all the work they're doing, particularly the work that they're doing, reaching out to communities in the state that don't necessarily have access to clean air and outdoor spaces, and their commitment to environmental justice and racial justice. They do a lot of, and the LGBTQ community. It was really important work, and I'm glad I got a chance to wander around there, as well as talk to them about the impact of things like raising the minimum wage for organizations like Silver Lake, whose employees are seasonal, and when they are there, they are living on site. It just complicates the minimum wage situation. So it was good to hear from that. I know some states have provided exemptions there, and I'm going to have some conversations about that to learn a little bit more about what we can do for them. But they have all kinds of really cool programs in the summer, including one that was Welcome to Wakanda, which I almost wanted to sign up for this summer. Maybe I'll take a week off and go to that. So from there, I went to Goshen, where I spent a little time in the first selectman's office. Bob wasn't there, but I'm dropping him off a piece of legislation I want him to read. And I was at the Goshen Recycling and Trash Committee, continuing my theme of composting and recycling, and highlighted several of the recycling-related bills that we passed out of committee in the Environment Committee. And I will highlight some of those more particularly in the newsletter version of this with links to them. But I'll talk about one in particular that I highlighted with them, which is the bottle bill. And that is a bill that raises it raises the redemption rate on bottles, which we haven't done for decades in Connecticut. And so we're really behind. And as a result of which, our recycling rate for those eligible bottles has dropped pretty drastically over the years. And what that has several impacts. It obviously, the most immediate is it just reduces our recycling. It also means that a lot of those bottles, which are glass, get into the single stream recycling and they break. And broken glass in the recycling stream it jams up the works. It slows things down. It messes up the stream. It makes things very expensive. And so the more we can pull those items out of the recycling stream, it's more cost-effective way to recycle them anyway, and it helps the rest of the recycling stream proceed more smoothly. So the hope there is that with a higher redemption rate on those bottles, more people will recycle them, and redemption centers will be able to actually make a living, because we've lost quite a few of them in the intervening years because it was almost impossible to make a profit. So that's a pretty important bill that has a lot of impact across the recycling in general. So on the topic, though, of bills, one of the things that I wanted to make sure I pointed out to you, and I will link to the various bills that we passed out of the Environment Committee when I do the newsletter to accompany this, so make sure to sign up for my newsletter. But one of the things that's happening at the moment, because right now a lot of bills are getting passed out of committee, and often those bills, there's substitute language in them as they get negotiated right down to the wire and get passed by the committee. And often, usually, that substitute language is not reflected in the bill that is online. So just this morning, I checked the list of the bills. If you go to the state website, which is cga.ct.gov, you can go, to an individual committee, and you can find a tab that says, bills passed out of committee. And look at the list, and the numbers of the bills will be correct. But when you go to the actual text of the bill, often that's old language. And that's certainly true of the BEAR bill, which I've discussed before, but it's also true of a variety of recycling-related bills in which we passed substitute language, which I think in really all cases improved the bill and made it possible to have a lot of bipartisan support for them, which will be important to make sure they get passed. So I just want to flag that for when you look things up. It's a little annoying. We're trying to figure out when the actual text of these bills will get reflected, and I'll make sure to update you that when I can figure that out. But I just wanted to flag that some of that language is not quite up to date. So my next step in my odyssey today was lunch in Falls Village at Mountainside Cafe, which I recommend. Took some leftovers and have been heating them in my car. Very, very luxurious life. But that lunch was about broadband, in particular about the municipal gain bill, which I have discussed before, but that was passed out of the Energy and Technology Committee with bipartisan support, and I've been able to speak with several of the supporters of that bill on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, who are looking forward to advocating having it make its way forward. And just to remind you, that's a bill. It has various components, but the part that I was most focused on as was Northwest Connect, which is a nonprofit in the area. It is municipal gain refers to that section of a telephone pole, which is reserved by statute for the use of municipalities. And this bill would allow municipalities to use that to create municipal broadband. And that is a way to reduce the cost of creating high-speed connectivity for our area, which is really pretty dramatically underserved it's somewhere between 25 and 35% of the houses in our district are unserved or dramatically underserved in terms of connectivity, and that hurts our economy. It hurts our demographics. Has a lot of healthcare. Has all kinds of impact. So this bill is one that I hope will, as we move it forward, I hope will ultimately make it more possible for us to create better connectivity, even if it means that Comcast and other cable companies just have a renewed interest in coming to serve us. That's also a plus. So that is making its way through, and that was what the subject of the conversation today at my lunch in Falls Village was. I then drove out of district, out to Enfield, where I did a tour at CHR, which is a nonprofit which provides behavioral health care. Actually, throughout the state, they serve, I think, 26,000 people throughout the state, and they provide a huge array of services. And as we look in appropriations in mental health, there are some services that are being moved from provision by the state to being provided by nonprofits. Sometimes that's appropriate, sometimes that's not, but I really wanted to spend some time. I have spent some time touring both the state-run and nonprofit-run facilities, because I think it's really important to understand what it looks like on the ground. So I spent a really good hour and change touring their offices and facilities in Enfield. And that was a great, I think that really helps make some of the decisions going forward. And then from here, I'm going to the Torrington DTC, which I haven't been able to attend recently. So the Democratic Town Committee in Torrington, that is to say. So that will be my day. I put a lot of miles on my car and got some good reading to do, including my manure books. So I hope you have a great weekend and talk to you soon. Thanks.